We've got a comment from another viewer, and I'm grateful for your comments. And it's from Jay Turner, who says, "Good evening to you both. I suggest that the viewers watch The Forsaken Promise," and that's a DVD. You may not have seen that, but it's an excellent DVD that was produced regarding Israel, in support of Israel. So he just says, can you tell the viewers to watch this, because that does have some information about what we're talking about. Now, I know the viewers would also, some of them would also want to say that from a faith point of view, we believe that as the prophets have said, that Jews will be gathered back to the land, and we see that happening today. And I just want to say that we are aware of that, and here on Revelation we're very up to date with what the prophets have said. And if you look at Amos 9:14-15, Jeremiah 33:7-11, Jeremiah 31:38-40, and you know many of the scriptures anyway. You're well versed in them, probably better than I am. But we do believe that this is part of God's plan. However, the conditions and the way that these refugees have been created is tragic in the extreme. And I think that also is something that we're grateful to you to bring to us tonight. And although we're looking at a figure of 856,000 people, we are also concerned with those individuals, those families who are affected by that, who've lost all that property and have lost their heritage, as you've quite eloquently explained. But when you look at those individual families today, the children, the second generation, do you know how they feel about that?
Well, let's say that from those 850,000, there are about 2.5 million, 3 million Israelis who originate from Arab and Muslim lands, and that's almost half the population. Now, these Israelis they now feel Israeli. They speak Hebrew, and they don't feel any nostalgia for Arab countries. They probably like the food, but that's about it, really. But there's an interesting phenomenon going on, and that's the third generation is now rediscovering their roots in terms of culture and music, and there is a sort of revival going on in Israel. You find that Arabic music is very popular, Arabic style pop music. You know, there are loads of artists like Sarit Haddad, Ofra Haza, loads of them, and they're very popular. And I think these are the Israelis who are tapping into their Middle Eastern roots.
I know, and I've been down to Sderot a number of times, and I stayed there one Shabbat and had a meal which consisted of chicken in a big roasting tin with rice and boiled eggs in their shells.
Yes,
and the lady said, "That's Moroccan.
Yeah.
I'm from Morocco."
Well, it could have been Iraqi too.
Really? So
yeah, that is a classic Shabbat dish, actually, because, as you know, you're not allowed to cook on Shabbat. So the lady of the house would put her chicken in the oven to bake on a very low light with the eggs on a Friday afternoon, and then she'd eat the eggs. The family would eat the eggs, probably with some pickle, for breakfast the next day. So they'd have two meals rolled into one.
So their cultural roots haven't gone away?
No, not at all. In fact, Ashkenazim, people from Europe, have actually adopted certain dishes, and you know, you'll find restaurants offering Moroccan dishes such as the one you've described, and in fact, you know, they're very popular.
Your son Gideon, who's sitting just across the way from us, has texted us and said the book that we need to look at is the one you mentioned earlier, but you couldn't remember it. Was Ali Amir Books' trilogy, The Dovefly, The Scapegoat, and Yasmin. He says
absolutely right.
He hopes this helps, Mum. Thank you, Gideon. Thank you. Now, when we started the program, I said at the beginning that really we wanted to equip ourselves as to how we can help, how we can support, and how we can raise awareness ourselves as a Christian community. And I know our viewers would be really keen on activating themselves. So what can we do, Lynn, to do those things?
Well, as I say, any eventual Middle East settlement has to be based on truth. If we're going to have reconciliation between Arabs and Jews, you can't leave out half the story. So people must know about Jewish refugees. So what I would suggest is for viewers who might be interested in Middle Eastern politics and happen to be reading articles or looking at a TV program that mentions Palestinian refugees and fails to mention Jewish refugees, what I would do is write a letter to the editor or phone up the program, point out that Jewish refugees have not been mentioned and they should be. And I think if everybody did that, that would help a great deal to raise awareness of this very, very important issue.
I think we'd be very busy in doing that, because I've never read in any newspaper or report or on a website or heard from the BBC or ITV or any of the big news companies this question about Jewish refugees raised. Have you any experience of that?
No, it doesn't happen very often. It's happening more and more, I would say, in the American press, in people's sort of talk-back comments to articles, but in fact it's pretty well absent from mainstream media. For instance, I had a look at the BBC website today, and they have country profiles, and I looked at Israel and the Palestinian territories, and I found a sort of brief summary of the conflict, and it mentioned Palestinian refugees. It didn't mention Jewish refugees, and this is absolutely outrageous, and something ought to be done about it.
So we can become very active, really, by writing to newspapers and to the main media outlets and say, why haven't you mentioned the subject of Jewish refugees?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Lynn, I want to thank you so much for coming tonight. I've learned so much, and you've been great, and I've been really privileged to interview you, so thank you very much. But thank you to our viewers who've watched the programme tonight. Good night to you all. God bless.
Thank you.